Hi, this is another video related to sewing the Rakusu, and it's how to get started practicing making stitches. You can see here I have a piece of cotton cloth. It's just a piece of scrap white cotton cloth like you would have in a sheet or a pillowcase or maybe an old shirt or something. I just picked white because it's what I had around, and as you can see I'm folding it double because you want to practice sewing a couple pieces of cloth together. And what I want to do first of all on this is to draw a line, and what I'm going to do is use a pencil since it's white. Later be using black cloth, and you'll be using a contrasting thread. In that case you'll be using a thread that's light colored on black background, and this one's going to be dark colored thread on a white background. So I've just drawn a line so we can practice, and this just happens to be needles I happen to have around, and I'm going to just take one at random. It's a pretty big needle. You'd use a smaller one when you're actually sewing your Rakusu, but this is what I have here. And I also grabbed just a random dark thread. This one is kind of a brown color. I just licked that off screen so you couldn't see it. Threading my needle here. The amount of thread you want, often for Rakusu sewing at least, we're going to do kind of a back stitch, is about twice the length of what you're going to sew. So, oops, I just pulled the thread out. So this kind of thing happens all the time. You slowly learn to get used to it. You poke yourself with the needle and you pull the thread out of the eyelet when you didn't mean to, and you have a hard time threading it. So if you have all those problems, those are the problems that we all have. So there I'm threading it a second time. Okay, pulling a little bit out. We're just going to use a single strand of thread, so we don't want to really double it over. But as I was saying, if I were going to sew this whole thing, I would make sure I have this much thread and then about this much again. So you have, roughly twice as much thread as the length you're going to sew. And we'll cut that off and then tie a knot in the end. I'm licking my two fingers together, which again you can't see off screen. And the way I do the knot is I roll this in my fingers so I get 5 or 6 strands there, which make a kind of a big knot in that case. And what I like to do is to put the knot on the inside so that it doesn't show. So I'm going to do that. Come on out. And now start my stitching. The stitching we're doing, I think technically is called a back stitch. And I'll do a couple and then explain what I'm up to. That's the way it goes. So on the front, you see a kind of a little dash. I'm putting the needle in below the line at about a 45-degree angle from behind where it came out, just barely below and just barely distant, and then taking a little run and bringing the needle out above the line. I'll continue to do that a couple of times. Go in below the line, come out above the line. In Rakusu sewing, this particular stitch is called the Namu Kiebutsu stitch, because when you push it in, you go Namu, and when you get to the next place, you go Kie, and when you pull it up, you go Butsu. So you'd be doing that silently to yourself. Namu, kie, butsu. And when you start, even if you've been doing this, for years, usually when you start, the stitches are kind of uneven. You kind of got to get a rhythm and get a pace. But then after a few minutes, you start to get a pace, and you start to get more regular. So I won't continue this any longer. You don't need to see me continuing to sew here. But one of the things you'll see is it's sort of an even pattern on the front. Ultimately, you're going to want to make them a little smaller than that so that they end up almost looking like dots. So it's a little closer together than I was doing there. But it's still, you go below the line, then above the line. Namu, kie, butsu. And you can see that one's a little smaller. I'll do another one. You can kind of adjust. Butsu. Okay, now one other thing you can do is you see the pattern there, and they're getting a little smaller here. You can look on the other side and see how that goes. And then you see that, and there's some little irregularities there, but that's another place to check. And that's what it will look like on the back, and that's what it'll look like on the front. Here's one that I was doing before just to practice for the video. Not necessarily any better. Just to give you another example. That's the front, and that's the back. You can see this, I did it for a while and wasn't doing too uniform, and then it got better, or more uniform, let's put it that way. No good, no bad. That's the way you'll practice.